Alright, now it is time to hook up the remote control parts onto these motors. Three main components. First is steering, second is shift, third is throttle. There is no order of importance, but anywho. There's many ways to do this. Mainly the steering, it's got all kinds of different options. The shift, it's got about two, I believe, the old style and new style. Throttle, it's got a whole list of different ways as well. So if I have the parts, I'll be showing you all the different ways to do it. But for right now, all I'll be doing is doing the steering and the shift. I'll worry about throttle when it's on the boat. With these older engines, the type that use the gear system, you don't have the option to leave the tiller handle on. I mean, you do and you don't. So right about there, the tiller handle will still work and function okay. It's kind of hard to tell, but the gears inside of there are still moving. Problem is, if you have the tiller all the way back, I mean like that, up and out of the way. Now, keep in mind, there's going to be a cable going through this hole, remotely controlling the throttle. It'll eventually be turning this gear here. And just to show you here, see how it's turning, but this is not? So let's say this becomes out of orientation, you know, right out so, where this tooth should be going into this big slot down here. It won't. Now, if I lower the handle, one of these is going to break. It's kind of a problem, not really. The biggest problem is these sitting here grinding on each other. So the best thing to do is just pull the tiller handle off. So I'll be doing that first. Both tiller handles are now off. Pretty easy to do. You have a 9/16 inch nut inside, which kind of locks it all together. And then you have the main attaching nut and bolts, whatever you want to call it, inside, which is a 3/8. Let me show you what they look like. Now, the reason I put these on was just so I could test start these motors. That's why you didn't see anything about a tiller handle in the repair video. So that's what it looks like when it's off. Now this one, it's just rigged together enough to have the steering handle. It's missing the friction block, little indicator, but anyway, that's basically your tiller handle. Some of the newer motors, the ones that don't use this type of tiller, use the gear-driven tiller. The newer ones use a cable-driven. They don't look quite as funky with this whole gear thing hanging out. Just because, I don't know, a little sleeker design when you're done. There's two types of brackets used on the shift controller, or the shift side. We have the old style, which looks like that. Yeah, I'm pretty close here. Let me kind of back up. So this is one of the early styles. It's pretty long. And then we have the newer design, which is this guy. I opted to use the longer one. Let's see if I can focus here. I opted to use the longer one just because you don't need a special cable end to be able to use it. Should I have any problems along the way with clearance, I'll be swapping over to this, but for now I'm going to be using the older type. So on the outside of the motor housing, there's these two little holes here, little plastic rivet looking things inside. Those are the provisions should you wish to install one of these. So all you do is you go in from the inside with a screwdriver, push out the center pin, if it'll move. You see it popping out there? Alright, the whole shebang pulled out of there. So I'll do that for the bottom one as well. And with that done, you can then see where this attaches. Back up a little. Alright, like so. So this one anyway, was new when I bought it. Came with the nice new hardware. It can be a little tricky to get inside of there if you have a situation like mine where there's a choke arm in the way, but it's manageable. Now I'll get a screwdriver and a wrench and I'll tighten those down. Alright, there's one attached. Now I'll do the same thing for the other engine. Alright, now we have a little cable retainer, which is this little guy. Now, you're probably going to have to take this off again when you install the cable. But better to do it now before you lose it. So we have that little clamp, we have this little special washer, and then we have a screw. So what happens is when with the special washer, it's all kind of flush inside of there. Alright, now it's time for the steering bracket. There's your standard everyday bracket. Big hole on top for the stop switch, which I won't be installing, but it comes with it anyway. I'd prefer it not to be there, but what are you going to do? There's also the other version, which looks like this, which has a huge hole in the side of it. The reason that's there is for an an AC lighting connector. It would go inside of there, plug it in, and your boat's got lights. It's kind of never understood that. If you had a remote controlled engine, chances are you have remote start, which means you have battery charging, which means why do you have that for lighting? Well, whatever. But anywho, so it's just got two, I believe they're 1/2-inch bolts coming out the back, and that'll hold it on the front. So I'll go ahead and get that on. Alright, now I'll do that to the other motor. If you were only doing one engine, this isn't really going to apply to you because you're going to have a much better time. You may need to pick up one of these little guys. This is a steering bracket adapter kit, and by kit I mean all it is this little weird funky shaped piece of metal. So for my setup, what I have here is a threaded rod, a little, I don't know what they're called, ball joint or end joint. I have a 9/16 stainless steel nut. Inside I have a jam nut, and that gave me the extra 1/4 inch I needed for clearance, and then a lock nut on top. Excuse me, that one's a jam nut as well. So what I needed this for was, again, I'm putting two of these motors together. Nobody makes a tie bar for engines this close together and this small, so I kind of had to make my own. So I have one on this end and then one on this end. Now this is a stainless steel threaded rod as well, or all thread as a lot of people like to call it. I call it a threaded rod. You won't be able to adjust this easily. In order to adjust it, you got to take this off the motor, rotate it down, and then put it back on to get your 1/4 inch. Until the engines are on the boats, and the engine is on the boat, and they're correct distance apart. I'll then put another jam nut inside of here, and then put the threaded rod through this piece of aluminum tubing. Now what this actually is I don't know, you'll see on the side of an excavator a hydraulic line running up. This is the hydraulic line. This is the metal tube. So it's nice and strong. It fits perfectly over this threaded rod. So that'll kind of clean the look up a little bit and give it a little more strength. The way these little adapters work is you pull this little pin back, it slides up, insert the pin, and you twist it to lock it down. And for my situation here, I'm going to install it on the other motor. Now, this looks pretty straightforward. Granted, it is, but this also took a lot of time, effort, planning, and two of everything. These little adapters, they ain't cheap. But what this does is allows the engine to rotate together. See that? Kind of nice, huh? When I first saw them hooked up and working like that, I was quite thrilled. I'll still have to hook up the steering cable. That's going to be some trial and error. I'll probably make or add to this video after I did it, rather than my trials along the way. I'll be taking these engines to the boat, which is my dad's place. I don't know if he's going to want to sit there and record our trials every step of the way until we get it right and then show the video, but he might be up for it. So we'll see we'll see what happens. But let me show you the other neat thing about this. So if I was only wanting these things to turn together, it'd be a little easier, I think. But I wanted them to be able to tilt independently of each other. I run in the river, so there's, shallow spots in the water, there's rocks, there's tree branches, there's all kinds of obstacles. All too often you'll hit something, your engine will pop up or drive over whatever you just hit underwater. So I didn't want that to happen and then kind of force steer it somewhere. So let me have the engine unlocked here. So we'll go at half tilt. Also, another thought too, let's say one engine dies and I don't want to drag it along inside the water. I can tilt it up, still steer, and go about my merry way. So there's the one engine tilted up a little bit. As you can see, they both still steer. There's no binding. Now let's go the rest of the way. The other engine rotated just a little bit. Not enough to really make too big of a difference. Engine still steers. Still no problems. So that's my setup. I think it's going to work out quite nicely, but we'll kind of see when the time comes. Also, you're never going to have one engine all the way tilted up like that and the other one down. But, you know, it's nice to know you can. Looking at the rod, it's on a pretty crazy angle. But right there, it's not a... Oh, let me show you. Gap there. The little rod end still doesn't touch. Now, right about there, it kind of does. Probably going to be able to slide a piece of paper in there, but it still doesn't touch. So I think it's a great steering setup. All right, I put the I don't know, airbox silencers back on, and I also put on the little trim knob. Installed the knobs here. That all set up. And here they are with the mixed match hoods. I think they look good. Alright, now it's time to hook up the electrical box, or the electronics in the electrical box for that matter, or rather. So, things get a little tight under here. I already ran the battery cables, I split them under here. Seems like that makes it fit a little better. So I have my 14-foot harness here, so it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. At least fighting with both. I'm going to try to go on that side. Put my little fuse holder in here. Like so. And we'll work the rest angle there for a bit. Suppose I can put this clamp in right now. Hold everything down for me. Now, I've seen a few different electrical covers for these things. Most common shows the motor assembly, or the motor cable rather, coming in on this side and all this stuff on the other side. The reason I don't want to do it that way is simply because if you're going to remove the engine, you don't have to remove the solenoid to get to the wiring and do all kinds of other stuff. I'd rather just be able to unplug it here and pull it out. This, I figure, is going to be more permanently installed in the boat than the engine is. Kind of. So, this is kind of where I want to put it. So, the way this works, we get a red wire, goes to fuse, and then continues over to white. Apparently, out of red wire, so that's what that's about. So, put our solenoid back in. It only screws down one way, so you don't got to worry about messing that up. Now, most people that have worked with a solenoid before like this for a starter, they don't do a ground. Reason being, on a car, the ground's the sheet metal of the vehicle. This is going into a plastic box screwed to a fiberglass transom, usually. Not in my case, but anywho. So for that, it needs to be grounded. So this is our ground battery wire. Go into our little ground spot here. That'll connect like so. We got some grounds for our switch here, mainly this one. It also needs to go to this. So things will get a little tight here, but just kind of the nature of the beast. So that'll install there. Positive battery cable there. The feed for our power goes there. Yellow is for the starter, or when you turn the key to start position, yellow gets activated. That goes to this side of the solenoid. Also, if you ever buy one of these new, I think it comes with a little diagram to show you where it goes. So that is pretty much it. It'll start and go like that, but we're not quite done. We have the stop signal here and our choke here. Those will connect to the terminals on the motor. Maybe I shouldn't have put the fuse in, but I can get to it. Doesn't matter which side goes where, as long as they get connected correctly. So I'll remove those two. And fish our choke around. Let's kind of bend it in there a little. Probably hard to see what I'm doing. I should probably find a way to give you a better camera angle. But anyway, so I hooked up the purple one to there. Hook up the blacker stop to this side. Alright, and our box is pretty much ready to go as far as the boat stuff. This will go to our starters. We'll have to tap in the red for the battery charging. There's a red wire coming off of the engine cable. It'll go to here. There's also a ground for the engine cable. It'll go onto this guy. And then our purple choke and our black stop. So that is pretty much the gist of it. So let's I'll find the cover, put it on here, let it sit for now. I'll also try to get another one of these screws. Can't find one for the other side for the motor, but I'll worry about that later. Now for the switch. If you buy one of these switches, this is how it comes. It does not come with screws. That is something you need to know. So you'll need to supply those separately. I think this is intended to be used as a replacement in a controller or something. So I had to pick up a little bag of screws. They're odd size, so I couldn't find any at the hardware store. The small hardware store here in town where the shop is, it's an Ace, so it's got all kinds of weird specialty stuff. I didn't have the size, and Lowe's and Home Depot didn't carry it either, so I had to order it. So, just so you know, it does come with a little diagram on the back. Reading that isn't too bad. Let's get started. This guy, which is a black stop circuit. So that would be our little black wire. Not to be confused with the slightly larger black wire, which is the main ground. Alright, next one is our start circuit, which is our yellow. Alright. Next one is the primer, which is purple. Next one is switched B positive, or switched battery positive. So if you had the key on, it would liven this up to light up your gauges or whatever you got. My boat doesn't have any of that, so we're going to be leaving that one blank. But I will be putting a screw in it, and that way when the time does come, I have a screw in there already. See, that's planning ahead right there. Alright. Next one is the main ground, which is the 14 gauge black. Might be a little overkill, but it works. Better be over than under, right? And process of elimination, the white one should be to here, which should be battery positive. What am I looking at? Non-switch, B positive. So yep, battery positive. Perfect. And keep in mind, this is fused as well. And that will install into the dashboard of the boat. Nice little key switch there. So I'll do that for the next one, and then bundle them up and go put them in the boat. Alright, here are the two harness boxes all hooked up and ready to get installed into the boat. This one is actually the 9.9 15 horsepower electric start box. This one is actually a, I don't know, 70s power trim and tilt box. You can tell the holes inside and the cover. Shows you how to wire the tilt trim motor. See, trim motor, kind of funny, huh? So, no big deal, it'll work. So, pretty much ready to transport these. Now the only thing is I gotta convince the girlfriend putting these in the back seat of her car is a good idea. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, we're at the tunes go.